Brought to you by FranklinCovey. This is Great Life, Great Career. Now back to the show. Here's your host, Scott Miller.
Welcome back, everyone. As we went to break, I mentioned that each week we have a famed expert that comes on the program and have a great, insightful conversation with them. Really listen to what they have to impart. You know, some weeks it is a best-selling author. Other weeks it's a business CEO. Some weeks it's a celebrity that has, well-earned reps around a particular passion or competency, all around this idea of creating great life, great career, your reputation, kind of all grounded in the fact that we're all leaders, formal or informal. Some of us choose to be a leader of people, but everybody has leadership capability and influence in them. And today is no different. Our theme is entrepreneurial leadership, learning to lead others before you lead yourself, with the famed entrepreneur, Joel Peterson, who is the author of the book, The 10 Laws of Trust. Joel, welcome to Great Life, Great Career.
Great to be with you, Scott.
Joel, I'm so honored to have you on this program this morning. You're calling in from the Stanford campus, where you are a consulting professor. You are also the chairman of JetBlue Airways. You're a member of FranklinCovey's board of directors for, nearly 30 years. You are an investor, owner, entrepreneur of, hundreds of companies. You are the chairman and founder of Peterson Partners, which is a Salt Lake City-based investment management firm with over $1 billion under management. I'm just delighted to get 30 minutes of your incredible brain today. We appreciate you giving us your time.
You're nice to say that, and you're making me tired when you list all those things.
Well, I haven't even mentioned the personal side, right? Your children and grandchildren, and you and Diana have been married for 46
years.
46 years. Congratulations, sir. And how many children, Joel?
7 children, 25 grandchildren.
My goodness. I've got 3 boys, and I feel like that's a lot.
It is a lot. One child is a lot.
It's true, especially my third. So,
yeah.
Joel,
the third is the hardest, actually. What we found after 3 is they start raising each other.
Well, thank you for now sharing that. I would have had a fourth had I known that before.
Yeah.
Joel, I am very interested to glean out this nearly 50-plus years of remarkable leadership experience, education you've had. What I'd like to, Joel, I mentioned for a moment kind of your history. Would you just take a moment, maybe a minute, and just give some highlights, check your humility, talk about some of the leadership roles, business roles you've had so people can get a sense for the wealth of your experience?
Well, I started out as a leasing agent in France, leasing warehouses, and then I moved from there to becoming treasurer of a real estate company, and then it's CFO, and then ultimately it's managing partner. And then I ended up starting my own business, and also at the same time began teaching at Stanford in the business school. That was about 26 years ago. And have since invested in, as you mentioned, several hundred companies, and I've served on maybe 36 boards over the years. So I've enjoyed a lot of different experiences, some successes, some failures. So you learn a lot from both.
And Joel, you also are a teacher, one of the most, I would say, famed and respected and certainly signed up for professors at Stanford. You are the author of the book, The 10 Laws of Trust, Building the Bonds That Make Business Great. And although that's not our topic today, I'm going to have you back on the program when that book is published this year. What I'd like to do is take a few moments and start to glean out some of your passion and expertise around entrepreneurial leadership. Tell me first, why did that become such an interesting topic to you? Why is it so important to build leadership skills in entrepreneurs?
Well, I've actually spent time with all kinds of different leaders in these various boards and investments and whatever, and I've noticed that there are different types of leaders that you coach that need different kinds of coaching, and I've identified the entrepreneurial leader as a rare breed and one that people can learn how to become. They can develop the skills. They can have the maps that help them become more of an entrepreneurial leader. And so I'm actually writing a book now on how to become an entrepreneurial leader. I'm calling it Running Stuff. It's going to take a while before it comes out, but that's really what I'm working on now because it is such a passion.
I think what I like about you, one of the things I like about you is you have this nearly, I don't know how old you are, Joe, but you've got, at least 45 years of serious Fortune 500, entrepreneurial leadership experience, and you decide to write a book called Running Stuff. You just bring it down to like practical level, because at the end of the day, leaders are doing that, are they not? They're running stuff.
Exactly. Whether it's their own lives or their own families or any institution they work with or a project. We're all basically running stuff even if we just limit it to our own lives. And the reason I think about entrepreneurial leaders is they basically are in charge of creating durable change. And that's the thing that differentiates the entrepreneurial leader from many of the others that sit in corner offices.
Durable change. That will be the topic of our conversation when we have you back to interview you on running stuff. Joel, you have talked a lot about the fact that there's kind of 4 categories of leaders that you've coached in your career, and you've called them presiders, managers, entrepreneurs, and entrepreneur leaders. Would you just take a few minutes to kind of talk about what are the differences? First, talk about what's a presider?
Well, I'm sure everybody's run into presiders. These are people who basically give credibility to an organization. They cut ribbons, kiss babies, manage process. They preside over processes that are set up and running well, and they play important roles. Presiders are quite important. A lot of organizations have presiding authorities that go around, and they just carry the banner for the organization. That's an important role. It's not creating durable change. It's actually making things stay the same. So that's one kind of leader.
And you think that's an important role. You're not necessarily diminishing it. You're just calling it out as it is what it is and don't expect more or different from that.
Exactly.
And the next type of leader you've coached, you call managers. What's the difference between managers and presiders?
Well, managers are also vital. They fundamentally manage complexity. So they're given tasks, and they basically are able to organize capital, people, various resources, and create some kind of an outcome that you're looking for. They create results, deliverables. And so managers are quite important, and they have to do a certain degree of leading. They may not decide which peak to climb, but they certainly help you get up the mountainside. So managers are also very valuable, a very important kind of leader.
What's interesting, Joel, is when we think of the word manager, I don't think of a CEO of an entrepreneurial company. But what you're suggesting is, no, in fact, there are some founders, CEOs, that are entrepreneurs that function as managers.
Well, most people who found companies, most entrepreneurs, I would not call good managers. In fact, in most cases, they're entrepreneurs because they're not managers. They don't like the detail. They don't get into it. And many entrepreneurs who do get into that, who find themselves into that, their organizations begin to lack innovation. They're not seeing around corner. Entrepreneurs tend to see the big picture, and they're always looking at what's changing on the horizon. So I think most entrepreneurs are not managers, and most managers are not entrepreneurs. There are key roles for both of them, but rarely do they overlap.
It's a great distinction. Let's move to the third type of entrepreneur leader. You actually just call it out, entrepreneurs. How is an entrepreneur different from an entrepreneurial leader?
Well, entrepreneurs light fires. There's a lot of activity around them. They're always excited about the next new thing. There's a lot of companies, in fact, they say 9 out of 10 new entrepreneurial ventures fail. And it is because these folks are creating new ideas, trying out new things. They really can't stop themselves from this kind of thing, but they don't necessarily create durable change. And so you find a lot of there's a thing they call the founder's trap, where the founder is actually able to create the company, but then the company fails because the founder's not able to really become an entrepreneurial leader and create the durable change. So the final category is this one of entrepreneurial leader, where they really are able to take their entrepreneurial instincts. They're not afraid to pilot new things, to try out new ideas. In fact, they're always looking around corners, seeing over the horizon, but they're also able then to follow a certain level of discipline that allows them to make the change permanent, make it stick, work it within an organization, create an organization. So it's the most sophisticated, difficult kind of leadership is that of the entrepreneurial leader. And when you find one of those, it's gold. But I guess my point is we can all develop our entrepreneurial leadership characteristics.
Our guest today is Joel Peterson, the famed Stanford professor, chairman of JetBlue Airways, the founder of Peterson Partners, and the author of several upcoming books, including The 10 Laws of Trust and Running Stuff. Joel, let's expand a little more on the mindsets of entrepreneurial leaders. I mean, you know from your association with Dr. Stephen R. Covey, the founder of FranklinCovey, how important mindsets, paradigms are to our behaviors and our results. And you're as passionate about that as your friend Dr. Covey was, and his legacy still is. Delve deep into, for those people on the phone or that are listening on the radio or in a podcast that are thinking their son is an entrepreneur or that their grandson might want to become one or granddaughter, what are some of the mindsets that entrepreneurs need that need to move into an entrepreneur leadership role?
Well, I'm glad you used the word mindset because it really is the way that you think about things as a context that you look at. And I think entrepreneurial leaders tend to see the big picture. They tend to think about 3 to 5 years down the road. They tend to think about second and third order consequences. They tend to think about what are competitive responses of others. They tend to have control of their own lives. They tend to build high trust. They tend to attract high-quality teams, and they tend to keep those teams. So they do a lot of things that we don't think about pure entrepreneurs necessarily doing, but the ones who actually congeal the idea and make it work are these entrepreneurial leaders who always have the instinct to try new things, to innovate, but then they also have the ability to kill the new idea, to sunset it, to move on, because they're building what they hope is a durable institution, what they think will be an enduring business. And so the entrepreneurial leader plays such a unique role because he or she is looking over the horizon, seeing the future, gathering the resources, trying something out, adjusting, making changes, bringing on new people, attracting new capital, making changes, and building an institution. And that's something that's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, which entrepreneurs don't often do. Presiders, they don't want to take those steps. They really want to have a stable organization that's already set up. And by the way, many of the jobs in this world are for presiders and managers and entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurial leadership is not the only kind of thing we need done, but we do need more of it. It is really what is at the cutting edge, what makes a huge difference. And if you're really about change, being the entrepreneurial leader is at the forefront of change.
Joel, I have a gender question for you, and you have invested in hundreds of companies. You are a founder and owner of companies. You've sold and bought literally hundreds. Have you ever found that there's any differences in female or male entrepreneurs? Not bad or good, just are there any differences that you've experienced in your life?
Well, I do think there are differences between men and women, between people from different ethnic backgrounds, from different countries. But I don't think they come to play in this arena. I find entrepreneurial leaders of both genders, of any ethnicity. There are great entrepreneurial leaders all across the board. So it's really more the characteristic of the person than it is anything about any of these other.
Yeah. The reason I ask is as we look at booking guests for our program, it seems like female authorship is on explosive rise right now. You look at the bestseller list, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. Seems to me the balance is really tipped toward having this massive outbreak of female-owned businesses and female CEOs, entrepreneurs, and authors. Are you seeing that in any of the businesses you invest in at all?
For sure. Yeah, we're investing with a lot of women entrepreneurs, and they're terrific. And we're bringing women on various boards. You're right, Scott, that there's a lot of energy around that. And I think women do bring a new optic on things. I think they bring a certain skill set that men don't always have. But I think the combination of men and women working together, just like any time that you are able to triangulate on a problem, it's the term that navigators use when they're trying to find their way somewhere. They triangulate. They get a different optic on what it is, and that gives them the right bearing to move forward. And I think having men and women, people from different experiences, really brings a lot to the equation.
Our guest today is Joel Peterson, the famed author, entrepreneur, leader, investor, and professor from Stanford. When we come back from break, we're going to talk a little bit deeper on how does the role of entrepreneurial leader relate to building a high-trust culture? How do you fix breaches of trust? How do you protect yourself from those who betrayed you? And what is the role in a leader of building the right team and differentiating between stars and divas? You're listening to Scott Miller, host of Great Life, Great Career. For your divas, stick around because Joel Peterson's going to call you out.